Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode is going to be the Week 5 league-wide recap. I'll start off with my thoughts and recap on Week 5 around the NFL. And then I'll head into top threes in some major stat categories. And then we will get to the him performance of the Week 5. And then a little bit of quick thoughts on the Week 6 matchups, just my quick thoughts and kind of things to look for off the top of my head, as well as then I will give my Week 6 picks. Before we jump into that, please make sure you press that follow button, share this with your fellow NFL fans, as well as check out the Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron. With all that being said, let's jump right in today with the Thursday night football game from Week 5. Where the Bears took down the Commanders 40-20. This one came as a little bit of a shocker to me, as the Commanders have been playing, well. Their record may not show that they're playing great, but they have been playing well. Sam Howell looked really good 2 weeks ago against the Philadelphia Eagles, but they ended up losing by 20 to a Bears team who has looked quite the opposite of well. Did look very good first half against the Denver Broncos before folding that one and allowing 24-something run to end out the game there. But they finally got one. Sam Howell, Week 5, went 37 for 51, 388 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception, as well as 4 rushes for 19 yards. So really a good game from Sam Howell yet again. Running back Brian Robinson, though, had 6 carries for just 10 yards. Tight end Logan Thomas for the Commanders, 9 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown, while wide receiver Curtis Samuel had 6 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown. Justin Fields on the other side of the ball continued his, about average completion percentage, going 15 for 29, but does continue to put up passing touchdowns. He had 4 of those on the day with no interceptions and 282 yards, as well as 11 carries for 57 yards. Running back Khalil Herbert in Chicago had 10 catches for 76 yards. The Bears' offense as a whole had 451 yards, and their defense got to Sam Howell 5 times for 5 sacks on the day. Of course, that Bears' offense was led by DJ Moore, who had 8 catches for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did this, looked phenomenal. The Fields to DJ Moore connection so far this year has been very, very good. DJ Moore had 230 out of 282 of Justin Fields' passing yards. So great game by DJ Moore. Moving on to the London game of last week. Jaguars took down the Bills 25-20. Josh Allen went 27 for 40, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, as well as 4 carries for 14 yards and a touchdown. Buffalo wide receivers had themselves good days as well. Diggs going 8 for 121 and a touchdown, and Gabriel Davis having 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunate news for that Buffalo Bills defense. Second week in a row, a starter most likely done for the season. Last week, it was Tre'Davious White with the ACL tear. This week, Matt Milano fractured his leg. And it's looking like that will most likely be a season-ending injury. Sad, disappointing news to see as a Buffalo Bills fan. On the other side of the game, Trevor Lawrence, 25 for 37, 315 yards, 1 touchdown, and no picks. Lawrence still not looking, incredible. He has been getting better. He's been working up towards, how he played the second half or second 2/3 of last season. But still, he did not take that big jump that a lot of, people analysis, a lot of people were expecting, a lot of people in the NFL media were expecting to see him take. However, he is performing about where I thought he would be. A good quarterback, makes good throws, smart with the football, but not quite in that elite conversation yet. Travis Etienne, Jaguars running back, had himself a day, 26 carries for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 4 catches for 48 yards. Calvin Ridley continuing to have a good season after not being in the league for a couple of years. 7 catches for 122 yards so far. It's looking like Calvin Ridley may be making a case for comeback player of the year at the moment. And then Jaguars cornerback Darius Williams had 7 tackles, 1 interception, and a forced fumble across the pond in London. My Ravens, disappointing loss to the Steelers, 17-10. The Ravens, outpaced the Steelers in the first half about 250 yards to about 50, and went into the half 10-3. Lamar Jackson, 22 for 38 completions, 236 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, as well as 6 carries for 45 yards. The Baltimore Ravens offense had 8 drops on Sunday against those Pittsburgh Steelers. I think I seen a number of without yards after catch, even attempted to be calculated. 8 drops for 176 yards and 3 touchdowns were the numbers that Lamar Jackson and that Baltimore offense skipped out on. Flowers, 5 catches for 73 yards, couple drops. Andrews, 6 catches for 65 yards, couple drops. On the other side, Kenny Pickett, 18 for 32, 224 yards, a touchdown and a pick. George Pickens, 6 catches for 130 yards and a go-ahead touchdown. If you want a full dive into my Ravens vs. Steelers recap, please check out yesterday's episode. Please tell your fellow Ravens fans to check that episode out, as well as if you're interested in learning about the Ravens' next opponent, the Tennessee Titans, where I go more in-depth about the Ravens-Titans Week 6 matchup. The Panthers went to Detroit, and they lost 24-42 to the Lions. Bryce Young struggled just a little bit, kind of an up-and-down day. He finished 25 for 41 for 247 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks, while wide receiver Adam Thielen did all he could to help with 11 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. Ultimately, that Panthers defense that's been pretty solid so far this year just could not simply keep up with the Detroit offense, who was playing without wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown and without rookie running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Jared Goff went 20 for 28, 236 yards and 3 touchdowns. And David Montgomery having a great year for him, 19 carries for 109 yards and a touchdown. That's over 5 yards per carry on the day for him. And wide receiver Josh Reynolds, 4 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. And then rookie tight end for the Detroit Lions, Sam Laporta, 3 catches for 47 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's his 3rd touchdown of the season right there, which ties Kyle Pitts' career touchdowns already. Kyle Pitts is a player for the Atlanta Falcons that I've talked about, needed to get more involved. The Falcons did that this week, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple minutes here. And then second-year star defensive end Aiden Hutchinson had himself another good day, 3 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 interception off the edge there against the Carolina Panthers. The Giants fell to the Dolphins, 16-31, as that Dolphins offense looked, back and flowing at full speed after their loss to the Buffalo Bills in Week 4. Daniel Jones for the Giants, 14 for 20, 119 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Did leave the game in the second half with a neck injury. His status as of right now, at the time of recording, is questionable for Week 6. So we'll see how that develops and what that means for the New York Giants. Quarterback Tyrod Taylor came into the game, former, his career backup quarterback throughout the league, has started several games for various teams, has a Super Bowl ring as a backup for the Ravens. 9 for 12, 86 yards for him. Darren Waller, 8 catches for 86 yards. Safety for the New York Giants, Jason Pinnock, had 1 tackle, 1 forced fumble, and a 102-yard pick six. That was the longest scoring play of the week for him. But on the other side, the Miami Dolphins had 2 of those longest 5 touchdowns in Week 5 as well. One by Devin Achane, as well as one by Tyreek Hill. I believe those were on back-to-back possessions. Tua Tagovailoa had 22 for 30 completions, 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did have 2 interceptions on the day. Devin Achane, 11 carries for 151 yards and a 72-yard touchdown, I believe. Raheem Mostert, 10 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. And Tyreek Hill, 8 catches for 181 yards and a 69-yard touchdown, I believe. Jalen Waddle, 5 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. So that Miami Dolphins offense spreading the love like we've seen them do so far this year between Hill, Waddle, Mostert, and Achane. The Dolphins defense also showed up to play, having 7 sacks on the New York Giants, as well as 524 yards of offense. Despite the one hiccup that the Miami Dolphins had against the Buffalo Bills, they are looking like one of the top 5 teams in football. Potentially, I would say, the scariest offense in football. Moving on to the Saints versus Patriots, 34-0 in favor of the Saints on Sunday. Quarterback Mac Jones was benched for the second week in a row after going 12 for 22, 110 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. Quarterback Bailey Zappi came in and went 3 for 9 with 22 yards. Patriots only had 156 total yards of offense. Patriots are looking completely disheveled over there in New England, which is potentially putting longtime head coach Bill Belichick on a little bit of a hot seat, as well as that Patriots offense into a little bit of a fluster in terms of what do they do long-term at that quarterback position. Derek Carr for the Saints, 18 for 26, 183 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Alvin Kamara's solid day, 22 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown, as well as 3 catches for 17 yards. Michael Thomas, 4 catches for 65. Chris Olave struggled again, but did find the end zone with 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. The Atlanta Falcons, like I mentioned earlier a little bit about Kyle Pitts, they took down the Texans 21-19. C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, was looking very good. Probably the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year up to this point. 20 for 35, 249 yards, and a touchdown on potentially what was his poorest game of the season so far. He did find Dalton Schultz, 7 catches for 65 yards and that touchdown. And then defensive back for the Texans, Jalen Petrie, had 1 tackle and 1 fumble. 11 tackles and 1 fumble recovery for Houston. That was not enough to stop the Falcons' offense. Desmond Ridder, 28 for 37, 329 yards and a touchdown. And Bijan Robinson, 14 carries for 46 yards, as well as 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts finally showed up to the 2023 season, and potentially you could even say for the 2022 season, a little late, but 7 catches for 87 yards for the Atlanta Falcons. They definitely targeted him much more this week, and resulted in the Falcons' offense being a lot more efficient. Desmond Ridder, 28 for 37. That's almost 70%, if not. And 329 yards for Ritter. Having Kyle Pitts in that offensive rotation is definitely a big part for that Falcons' success throughout the rest of the season. Drake London, 6 catches for 78 yards, as well as, forgot to mention, Desmond Ritter also had 4 carries for 10 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So potentially, the best game of the season by Desmond Ritter. It was against that Texans defense who, isn't top-notch, but has not been horrible so far this season. There was, however, no sacks by either team in this game. A little bit surprising. And I feel like you do not see that very often in today's NFL. That Colts took on the Titans, and the Colts won that one 23-16. Ryan Tannehill went 23 for 34, 264 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick, while Derrick Henry had 13 carries for just 43 yards, and DeAndre Hopkins had 8 catches for 140 yards. Now, that Tennessee team looks to be up one week and down the next. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out against the Baltimore Ravens in London. Anthony Richardson went 9 for 12 with 98 yards before leaving the game with a shoulder injury. I was later diagnosed as an AC joint injury, and he is expected to miss at least a month with that AC joint injury. This will be Anthony Richardson's third game leaving with an injury. He's only played in 5 games now. So definitely something to look at. If that continues long-term, there probably won't be much long-term in terms of a career for Anthony Richardson. Certainly disappointing to see for him and for Colts fans, especially after being the number 4 pick overall. Gardner Minshew did come in again, going 11 for 14 with 155 yards. Zach Moss for the Indianapolis Colts, 23 carries for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as 2 catches for 30 yards. And then, a couple decent games by wide receivers. Josh Downs, 6 catches for 97 yards, and Michael Pittman, 5 for 52. The Bengals took down the Cardinals, 34-20. The Cardinals, once again, kept it close for a majority of the game. A team that myself and many others, thought would potentially be blown out in a lot of games this year, have stayed fairly competitive up to this point. The help for that with Joshua Dobbs going 15 for 32, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions last Sunday, as well as Hollywood Brown, 4 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. I believe that is 3rd game in a row where Marquise Brown has scored a touchdown. Joe Burrow, on the other hand, before we move on real quick, I guess James Conner did suffer an injury. We'll see how that develops. I don't quite remember the severity of that. I do believe it is more of a short-term thing. So Cardinals will be hoping that he misses no time or as minimal time as possible, as he has really been a spark to that Cardinals offense as well. Joe Burrow showed up going 36 for 46, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Joe Mixon on the ground, 25 carries for 81 yards, and Jamar Chase set the franchise record for the Bengals in terms of receptions with 15 receptions for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Incredible performance by Jamar Chase. One of them was a 60-plus yard touchdown. Jamar Chase looking like he's returning to form, where he is definitely in that top 10 wide receiver conversation, potentially, making a argument in that top 5 tier of wide receivers. And then defensive end, edge rusher for the Bengals, Trey Hendrickson, 4 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and a forced fumble on the day. The Eagles took down the Rams 23-14, who the Rams, I believe, are playing very good football, despite I think they may now be 2-3. But the Rams, kept it pretty well within range against the 49ers. and obviously against the undefeated Eagles, who, only beat the Rams by 9 points. So solid performance by the Rams. Matthew Stafford, 21 for 37, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp in his first game back, 8 catches for 118 yards. He looked like he didn't even miss a game. He's moving around very well, sharp routes, and it didn't really, affect the spread or ball distribution for rookie phenom wide receiver Puka Nacua, who still had 7 catches for 71 yards and a touchdown on the day. So very solid day for him. If they can keep Puka going alongside Cooper Kupp, that could be a dangerous duo in that Los Angeles Rams wide receiving core. And then linebacker Ernest Jones for the Rams, 15 tackles on the day. So props to him for that. On the other side of the ball, for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 25 for 38, 303 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, as well as 15 carries for 72 yards and a touchdown. So good day by Jalen Hurts. Almost 400 yards, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Good day as well by DeAndre Swift, who is potentially having a career year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. That's kind of been his struggle while he was in Detroit, is getting that full healthy season. But DeAndre Swift, 17 for 70 on the ground, as well as 6 for 38 receiving. A.J. Brown had 6 catches for 127 yards, and Dallas Goedert had 8 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Devontae Smith struggled to get a catch. Did have a couple catches for, I want to say off the top of my head, 20 to 40 yards, somewhere in that range. But he was struggling. The Rams defense was doing good against him, but that allowed Dallas Goedert to step up and have, over 100 yards and a touchdown for him. And then Jalen Carter and Hassan Reddick for the Eagles defensive line both had 2 sacks apiece. So the Eagles move on to 5-0, but I do not think, they have not looked like last year's Eagles. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement from those Eagles team. I would definitely think the 49ers are the most dominant, best team in football at the moment, followed by potentially 2. I would not clearly put the Philadelphia Eagles as the best or second best team in the NFL. I would say that conversation would, at this moment, be between the Eagles, the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, and potentially the Detroit Lions at this point, which feels odd to say. But moving on to the Chiefs versus Vikings. Kansas City Chiefs took down the Vikings 27-20. A couple of notable injuries in this game. Kirk Cousins went 29 for 47, 284 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, rookie receiver, had 6 catches for 64 yards and found the end zone yet again. One of the first of the 2 notable injuries was first to wide receiver Justin Jefferson, who injured his hamstring in the fourth quarter. He was struggling up to that point, I think 3 or 4 catches for 32 yards, something like that, but did damage that hamstring in the fourth quarter, and he has been placed on the Vikings injured reserve already, meaning he will miss a minimum of 4 weeks in Minnesota. And on the other side of the ball, Travis Kelce did roll an ankle. He did come back into the game. He finished the game 10 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how, if that ankle injury for Travis Kelce lingers around and becomes a factor again, later in this season. We did see how that Chiefs offense performed week 1 without Travis Kelce in the lineup. So he's definitely a critical part to what the Chiefs do and their success. Obviously, they have Pat Mahomes, who is capable of anything. Last Sunday, Mahomes went 31 for 41, 281 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco finished the day with 16 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. So solid day by him. Chiefs pull out the victory. The Jets took down the Broncos in Denver, 31-21. Quarterback Russell Wilson, 20 completions out of 31 attempts, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did, however, have a fumble that resulted in a touchdown in the fourth quarter. And then he also went 7 for 49 rushing. Other Wilson, Zach Wilson for the Jets, 19 for 26, 199 yards, no touchdowns but 1 interception, as well as 3 rushes for 26 yards. And Tyler Conklin, tight end for the Jets, 4 catches for 67 yards. Shout out the Central Michigan Chippewas. Far up chips. Conklin is a old CMU player, so definitely have to give them props when they make a couple plays. And then running back Breece Hall for the Jets had his best game of the season after having a couple that were just horrible. I think he had 4 carries for 9 yards and 8 carries for 10 or something very similar to that past 2 weeks. But Breece Hall didn't have that performance this week. Helped his team get a win with 22 carries, 177 yards, and a touchdown. Touchdown was a very long one, 72-yarder through the Broncos defense. And then another B Hall for the Jets. This time, defensive back Bryce Hall with the 39-yard fumble recovery for a touchdown with 41 seconds left to ice that game against Denver. Like I mentioned before, the 49ers took down the Dallas Cowboys 42-10 on Sunday Night Football. And the Cowboys are another team that I forgot to mention that, could be in that argument for second best team right now. Although I do think they would not receive that second place vote from me after this performance against the 49ers. But they are definitely in that conversation for top 5 teams, along with the 49ers, Dolphins, Bills, Eagles, Lions, and Cowboys would probably be my 6 that I would pick from to pick my top 5 right now. Dak Prescott, 14 for 24, 153 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. He struggled mightily on the day. One of those reasons was he was not looking or finding wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who had only 4 catches for 49 yards. If the Cowboys offense wants to, pick apart defenses, Dak needs to find CeeDee Lamb. He's one of the best route runners in the league, one of the best in terms of yards after catch. He needs to be involved more in that offense if they want to have a better chance at winning, especially when their rushing attack was struggling as much as it was on Sunday Night Football, where they only had 57 rushing yards. Brock Purdy continued to do what was necessary, in that Kyle Shanahan offense. 17 for 24, 252 yards, and 4 touchdown passes for him. One of those came to running back Jordan Mason, 10 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey, 19 carries, 51 yards, and a touchdown, as well as 2 catches for 27 yards. 3 out of 4 of Brock Purdy's touchdowns. This is the point I was attempting to make. 3 out of 4 of Purdy's touchdown passes came to George Kittle, who, 3 catches, 67 yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. Incredible performance by George Kittle, who literally every time he touched the ball scored a touchdown there against that Dallas defense. After one of his touchdowns, pulled up his jersey and had a friendly T-shirt for Cowboys fans. If you didn't see that yet, look up the George Kittle T-shirt. It should come up in your search engine. Fred Warner on that defensive side, one of the best middle linebackers in football. Proved that Sunday night against the Cowboys. 8 tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble on the night for Mr. Warner. And then heading into our last game of Week 5, the Green Bay Packers lost to the Raiders 13-17. Jordan Love had his worst game of the year with 3 brutal, 2 of them brutal interceptions. He finished 16 for 30, 182 yards, no touchdowns, and those 3 interceptions, as well as 2 rushes for 37 yards. Running back A.J. Dillon had 20 carries for 76 yards and the Packers' only touchdown on the night. And wide receiver Christian Watson, 3 catches for 91 yards. And on the other side of the ball, Jimmy Garoppolo, 22 completions for 22 out of 31 completions. That's like the 3rd or 4th time I've struggled with completions tonight. Just like the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers. But 208 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception for Garoppolo. Josh Jacobs, another good day for him. 20 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, as well as 5 catches for 20 yards. Jacoby Myers for the Raiders, 7 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. And Devontae Adams, 4 for 45 against his former team. And so that is the Week 5 matchup rundowns, quick thoughts, just some of the stats, a couple things that I think were intriguing that I noted, things like that. So now moving over to the top 3s in the major stat categories across the league after Week 5. Passing yards leader, Tua has 1,614. Kirk has 1,498, and rookie C.J. Stroud has 1,461. In terms of passing touchdowns, Kirk Cousins leads with 13. Tua, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Josh Allen all have 11. Very interesting. Kirk Cousins is 2nd in yards and 1st in touchdowns, yet the Minnesota Vikings are 1 and 4. Rushing yards, Christian McCaffrey, 510. Devon Achane, 460. Zach Moss, 445. Rushing touchdowns, Raheem Mostert, 7. Christian McCaffrey, 7. And David Montgomery, 6. In terms of receiving yards, Tyreek Hill, 651. Puka Nacua, rookie wide receiver for the Rams, 572. And Justin Jefferson, 571. He will unfortunately start to drop out of the top 3 in terms of yards as he's been placed on IR. Receiving touchdowns, 3 players have 5. That would be Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and DJ Moore. For tackles on that defensive side of the ball, Zaire Franklin still leading the league with 69 tackles. TJ Edwards, 61, and Roquan Smith, 54. In terms of sacks, TJ Watt leads the league with 8. And then Khalil Mack, Josh Allen, Danielle Hunter, and Trey Hendrickson all have 6. And then for interceptions, it is a 4-way tie with 3 interceptions apiece by Bates, Bland, Whitehead, and Jacobs of the Detroit Lions there. So, just interesting. I think it's fun to keep an eye out on those major stat categories to see who, leads the way, who's making the biggest impact for their teams, that kind of thing there. So now that that's done, we will head into the him performance of the Week 5. A couple of candidates only for this week. A couple huge performances by a couple of guys that really set the benchmark high for the Week 5 candidates. Those candidates are going to be DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, and George Kittle. In the Week 5 him performance of the week goes to Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase, who had 15 receptions, franchise record, as well as 192 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day for the Bengals as they took the victory against the Arizona Cardinals. Now let's head into the Week 6 matchups. I'll just give my quick thoughts on them. rundown. Just a few thoughts off the top of my head. Starting off this week, Thursday Night Football is going to be the Broncos at Chiefs, a divisional matchup that is normally closer than it should be, just because it's a divisional game. The AFC West is it's like that. Mahomes runs the AFC West, so you'll see my pick later. But foreshadowing, I expect that to happen again against a struggling Denver Broncos, who has one of the worst defenses in the league this season. That does not bode well normally when you are facing quarterback Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens take on the Titans in London. We should see the Baltimore Ravens hopefully have less drops than they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't really see how you can have more drops than that. The Tennessee Titans, Ryan Tannehill has been having a very solid game and followed by a very poor game. I would say statistically he had a solid game last week. That could hopefully bode well for the Ravens defense, who's making the argument of being a top 3 defense in the league so far this season, who quite frankly has overperformed my speculation and thoughts. There's a couple concerns for the Ravens defense that I had heading into the season, specifically defensive back, cornerback specifically position, as well as the edge rush. The edge has been okay. It hasn't been an obvious issue. And the corners have played very, very well, above my expectations. And they have now, started to get reinforcements with Marlon Humphrey, who, yes, gave up the game-winning touchdown to George Pickens. But other than that, made a few plays. He's only going to get better as he gets, that game feel back for him. Hopefully, Derrick Henry doesn't go beast mode across the pond. And Commanders head to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Sam Howell's been having a very underrated, good year. The Commanders could sneakily, potentially sneak into those playoff position. It's still very early. I haven't looked fully into it. I would expect the Niners to win their division, the Eagles to win their division, the Lions to win their division. The South is a little, more iffy. But, in terms of wild card, who are you looking at? I mean, the Cowboys probably. Other than that right now, maybe the Seahawks, that the door is definitely open for those Commanders. Sam Howell continues to play well. It's going to put them in an even better position, as well as quarterback Desmond Ridder coming off probably his best game this season. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those two quarterbacks takes over most for their team and can find their team a win. 49ers head to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns. This one will be interesting. Solid Browns defense versus, top 5 Browns defense versus a very efficient 49ers offense who has looked very, very good so far this year. I didn't look up the exact rankings, but I would project that Niners offense is in the top 5 in terms of scoring and probably the top 10 in terms of yards per game, just off, initial thought without looking at that statistic. The Saints take on the Texans. This one will probably be a close game. Neither team has showed dominance, good in a good or bad way, throughout this year so far. Saints Derek Carr is back, played solid. Derek Carr, played solid through the injury last week, week 5. Played good. Did not look like the shoulder was just affecting him quite as much as week prior in week 4. As well as, C.J. Stroud looking very well. I do believe that rookie wide receiver Tank Dell, I do think he's dealing with an injury. He's been very solid so far. So keep an eye on his status for the game. Nico Collins and Tank Dell have been C.J. Stroud's go-to weapons so far this year. Panthers head to Miami to take on that Dolphins. The Panthers defense just struggled, quite a bit against the Detroit offense, who is solid, but the Miami Dolphins offense is definitely more explosive, definitely more weapons for them in that Panthers defense. So I expect them to struggle. Dolphins will be, however, it's looking like they will be without rookie running back Devon Achane, who is potentially going to be going on IR. I think that's still developing here at this time. So unfortunate news for him, who's been having a great rookie season up to this point. Seahawks take on the Bengals. This is going to be a good game, one that I will want to keep my eye on. Obviously, will have major implications for my Ravens in the AFC North. With the Bengals being 2-3 at the moment, this could get them right back in the divisional hunt. So we'll see how that one breaks down. The Seahawks offense, hasn't lived up to the hype, at least in my opinion, with the combo of Lockett, Metcalf, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Kenneth Walker's been having a great year. He's been living up to, the expectations in his rookie season. But in terms of that wide receiving core, quite frankly, I'm slightly disappointed. So we'll see if they show up this week against that Bengals defense. Colts take on the Jaguars in a divisional matchup. Normally a good game between these two. Quarterback Anthony Richardson, like I mentioned before, he will be inactive. It's looking like he's going to miss a month or so. If he's not officially on IR right now, I wouldn't be surprised if he is before that Sunday kickoff, so that they can get, another player to help them win that game with an active roster spot. Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has played, decent to good so far in his career against divisional opponents. So we'll see if that continues this weekend against Colts defense led by linebacker Zaire Franklin, who has been all over the field in the 2023 campaign. And the Vikings take on the Bears in Chicago. Bears finally got their first win, but the Vikings are also just 1-4, which is surprising. Kirk Cousins, top of the league in terms of passing yards and touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, top of the league in terms of yards. He'll obviously be out as he's now injured reserve. Rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison should see an increase in targets this week. And he's already been having a very solid year there. And then we'll see, DJ Moore and Justin Fields. I want to say Justin Fields is, close to 80% completion percentage when targeting Moore. Although, I think he's, in the low 50s overall. But I do think DJ Moore has about 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. And I think Fields has a perfect passer rating against DJ Moore, or targeting DJ Moore so far this season. And then the Detroit Lions head to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. The Bucs have performed above expectations so far this year behind quarterback Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans, I do think, is still dealing with an injury. So he's been somewhat limited the past couple of games. And then that Lions offense, the Lions overall are looking very good. Efficient offense. David Montgomery having a good year. I would think wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown will be back. But we'll see about that one as that develops. And then that defense followed by, led by Aiden Hutchinson, having a very good year. So that should be a good matchup down in Florida, as well as the Patriots taking on the Raiders in Vegas. Garoppolo's back after missing a game, and there's a drastic change in that offense's production and efficiency with Jimmy Garoppolo versus rookie quarterback Aiden O'Connell. So expect, we haven't really seen, Adams has had his big game of the first, half of the season so far. We haven't seen it from Josh Jacobs against a poor Patriots defense that has, critical injuries of Judon and Christian Gonzalez. Struggling offensive situation with the quarterback. I do expect the Raiders to have some extra possessions in this one. And I would not be surprised if Josh Jacobs has his monster game of the first half of the season that we've seen from him, the past few years. The Cardinals take on the Rams. This one will be interesting to watch. The Cardinals have played above. Both of these teams really have played above expectations and probably above the talent level that you look at in terms of, the surface level of their roster. They've both played well. Cardinals have stayed very close against, two undefeated teams. Beat the Cowboys, who just got spanked by one of the undefeated teams. But I would still say the Cowboys, are up there in that 5 to 10 range in terms of best teams in the league. The Cardinals, beat them, kept it close against two top 3 or 4 teams. Should be interesting. Same goes for the Los Angeles Rams. Kept it close against the Niners, kept it close against the Eagles. This I expect to be a good matchup, potentially one of the better couple of games this week, as well as kind of the history of the Rams versus Cardinals, divisional game here, and a little bit of a rivalry that they probably have, obviously division, but expect a good game there in Los Angeles. And then the Eagles take on the Jets in MetLife. Not the game that, people were expecting it to be heading into this season with the Aaron Rodgers injury. But the Jets have looked either really bad or average so far this season since week 1. The Eagles have looked good. They've won every game. This game against the Jets, could potentially be their offense's breakout game. We will see. A.J. Brown has really stepped it up the past couple of weeks. Jalen Hurts just came off an incredible game against those. I'm blanking. Against the Rams, sorry. So see if he can continue that. Hopefully get back on the Jalen Hurts 2022 track. We will see. And then Sunday Night Football this week. Giants are up in Buffalo to face the Bills. Giants are struggling mightily. The Bills are playing very well, playing very good football. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs looking good as they have the past few years. The Bills, however, are struggling on defense. 2 very key players now being done for most likely this season. The past couple of weeks. Saquon Barkley may be nearing a return from that ankle injury. We will see if they suit him up for this Sunday Night Football matchup or if he's going to miss another week or so for the New York Giants. But if Saquon plays, that could potentially, open the door just a little bit for the Giants, who I think would still need a couple of costly mistakes from the Buffalo Bills to really be in this game. And then the last game of the week, Monday Night Football. Cowboys take on the Chargers in LA. Cowboys are definitely looking to bounce back after their, 42-10 loss to the 49ers against the LA Chargers, who have, kind of struggled this year. Definitely have struggled to finish games. It's going to be Justin Herbert's offense that is, probably top 10 to middle of the pack in terms of production, going against the Dallas Cowboys defense, who, was top 5 till a couple of, the first 3 or 4 weeks was top 5. Poor performance against the Cardinals. I think they allowed almost 8 yards per play against the Cardinals. And then obviously allowing 42 points to the 49ers. Be interesting to see who wins that battle, the Chargers offense or Dallas defense. That's, week 6 rundown. Quick thoughts on that one. On week 6 matchups, that just leaves me with my week 6 picks. Last week, week 5, I went 8-6. My record on the season is 52-26 for a win percentage of 667. So, in my opinion, I'm happy with that. I'd like to continue that train, see if I can get up over the 700 mark here, in the next couple of weeks. But here's my week 6 picks. Taking the Chiefs over the Broncos, Ravens over the Titans, Commanders over the Falcons, 49ers over the Browns, Saints over the Texans, Dolphins over the Panthers, Bengals over the Seahawks, Jags over the Colts, Vikings over the Bears, Lions over the Bucks, Raiders over the Patriots, Rams over the Cardinals, Eagles over the Jets, Bills over the Giants, and Cowboys over the Chargers. So that's all I have for, episode 52 here, I believe, on the podcast. If you guys made it this far, thank you all for listening. Thank you. Like I said, please press that follow button right here on Spotify, as well as share the podcast with your fellow NFL fans. Help me grow. Helps me get my podcast episodes out to more people, as well as check out the Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron, where you will see where every single episode, there's a post for that, so and stay up to date on everything Wedge52 Gridiron related. Thank you all for listening, and go Ravens.